Good morning, everyone, and happy almost Friday. That's what I call Thursdays because we're so close to Friday. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the Daily Creative Challenge, day number 3. And a big shout out to everyone joining us live right here on Behance, including Sakshi, Dee, Aaron, Gabriel, Eric, good friend Eric, who's joining us all the time, Anna. I saw Chris Cannon in here a while ago. He's one of our mentors this week and next week. Wendy, Agnes. So many awesome people joining us live at 8:30 in the morning. Might not be 8:30 where you are. Definitely let me know in the chat where you are tuning in from. I'm streaming live today from Los Angeles. Next week, I'll be live from our brand new studio in San Francisco with a lot of UI and UX stuff going on next week. So today we have another challenge. This is day number 3. We've kicked off 2 days already. And for those who are brand new, who haven't seen the challenge yet, we're doing things a little bit differently this week and next week. We're introducing Photoshop into the mix because what we've noticed is that a lot of designers like myself who have been using Photoshop for so long, some of them well over a decade, we're just so comfortable using it with UI and UX design. Even though Photoshop isn't necessarily built for UI and UX design, we're just so comfortable with it. So what we wanted to do, we wanted to show Photoshop users that XD doesn't necessarily replace Photoshop for a lot of people, but it can work hand in hand with it. So you can take your existing Photoshop documents that you've been working on for potentially years, right? Bring them into Adobe XD and then add on top of them with animation, prototyping, repeat grids, responsive resize, all sorts of things. So there's a lot of things that you can do in XD that you can't do in Photoshop and the other way around. And you'll see some of that today and tomorrow as well. So we have people from Taipei. This is awesome. It's 12:30 in the morning in Taipei. Oh boy. Dallas, Texas, Chicago, India, Sweden, Toronto, my hometown. Hey, New York. This is awesome. This is why I love doing these things, because we're connecting with people all over the world, and I don't have to get on a plane and go there, which is great. So let me hop over to my screen to kind of go over our Daily Creative Challenge, and here it is, behance.net/Daily Creative Challenge, and here's a register button right here. I have not pressed it yet. Shame on me. But if you are not registered yet, press that button so you get notifications every single day so you know when a new challenge and template is available. And if you scroll down, there's a 1, 2, 3, 4 list on exactly how you can take part in these challenges. So every day you're going to receive a challenge. Every day at 8:30 in the morning, I'm going to be right here kicking off the new template. And then you want to share your prototype to Behance, and you want to use the keyword XD Daily Challenge, and I'll explain why that's so important in a second. And then you have 9 challenges, and you have until December 21st to complete them all. And really, there's no competition. You can complete 3 of them. You can complete all 9 of them. It's really for you to build your portfolio and explore something new, especially if you're a Photoshop user. And the next steps, XD is completely free for most people. The paid plan that's part of the Creative Cloud gives you more prototypes to share, but if you don't need to share a lot of prototypes, it's completely free. And then we have a Slack channel. Let me hop over to Slack. Boop. Here's Slack, and we have 9,689 people. We're closing in on 10,000. We have an introduction section. You can jump in there, tell us a little bit about yourself, help in general, design feedback, chat, and announcements. So if you have questions, you can definitely answer them, or you can answer them. You can ask them there, and people like myself and others who are part of the XD team are there all day. Also, Chris Cannon is there. Yeah, Chris Cannon just point out that my notification game is deep 800. I haven't clicked on that little bell icon at the top there. But Chris is in the chat once in a while, giving feedback, answering questions. It's a good time. So what are we doing today? So the first day we kicked off with an e-commerce web experience, and you were to design and prototype an expressive e-commerce experience. The second day, which was just yesterday, we designed and prototyped a mobile app for a booking restaurant, or mobile app for booking a restaurant. And we used a little bit of voice. So if you missed that one, you can definitely go back, hit that replays tab above the Behance live video, and you can watch yesterday's stream. And you can kind of see how voice kind of plays into some things. It's really cool. And then today, we're designing a travel agency web page. We're going to start basic. And then, we may revisit this at some point in the future. Hint, hint, maybe. So we're gonna kick off with the template. You can download the template right here. You can watch a video. Once this stream is over, you can rewatch the video. And the importance of, before I get into the template, the importance of using the XD Daily Challenge keyword is so that we can go on Behance and search it. And we can also search by most recent, most viewed, all that fun stuff. And here are all your amazing entries that you've submitted over the last 3 days, which is great. And here's a few that really stood out to me that were submitted yesterday. This one is from AJ. I love this cute little curve at the top. I love these little curves that people are integrating into their designs recently. Also gradients. If you want to get on my good side, add some really nice gradients. Not too overdone, but nice subtle gradients. I like that. He has a little bar that pops down from the top, so you can filter whether you want spicy or soft creams, veggie corner. Really nice stuff. And then of course he integrates the drag, and there's a little video down here put into a little iPhone template, which is really nice. I like that. Oh, you see the curve? The curve even moves. And that's the cool thing about Adobe XD auto-animate is you can adjust the paths, and XD will automate that or animate that as well. Next we have EC, who created this really interesting take on the challenge. These circular food items, these really nice looking, Domino's is always good. It's a really nice take on it. And dark mode, I like anything dark. And then finally we have one from Aaron, who has this really nice looking presentation at the top. Also kind of went with the dark style. Really nice. Add some additional icons right below each post or each listing. A cute little map showing where the restaurant is. You can choose what time. So Aaron really took this to a new level. And that's really what I like to see when people are submitting these challenges, is kind of take what I'm showing you in these quick little half-an-hour streams and really explore what else you can do during your time all day designing these things. So I definitely challenge you during these challenges to kind of push the bounds a little bit, especially with today and tomorrow. Go a little bit further than what we're going to be showing you. So with that said, let's hop into Photoshop and check out what our template looks like. So this is our template for today, and your challenge is to design and prototype a travel agency website. Use the artboards below to add color, content, and then prototype the flow. So as a Photoshop designer, you might have something that looks like this in your workflows, right? You might have several different artboards or even several different documents, and they might be a little bit more designed than this, but we're starting very plain from like the wireframing phase. But you might want to illustrate how this would look with, after a timed interval. So it would start at this card being a little bit larger, and then after a certain amount of time, this card would get a little bit larger, and then the third card. So you would have like multiple artboards on your Photoshop document, but they're not really moving. And Photoshop does have a timeline at the bottom, but it's not super easy to use. It requires rendering and things like that. So what we want to do for this example is show you not only how easy things like masking is in Adobe XD, but also how you can use time transitions and auto-animate to really prototype a travel agency website and bring it to life. And then again, hint, hint, we may revisit this at some point in the future to add even more to it. So with that being said, you also have some colors over here and some links, but let me hop over to Finder. Here's Finder, and here's my folder that I'm working with. This here is the Photoshop document we were just looking at, and it's a standard PSD file, which is cool because XD can open PSDs and AI files. So what we're gonna do, we're just gonna drag this down to my dock, pop it into Adobe XD, and XD will launch. There it is. And if you are not on the Mac, I had some people ask about this yesterday. If you're on Windows, I don't believe you can't drag it onto the icon. So in that case, you would just go up to the File menu, go down to Open, and then find that PSD file that way. So that will launch it into Adobe XD. And what you'll notice is if I go into this artboard in my Layers panel, which is over here to the left, this one down here at the bottom is Layers, and this one is Assets. Everyone's pointing out my notifications. Yeah, I do have 879. I refuse. It gets to the point where you just refuse to click on it because you want to see how large it can go. So you'll notice that all the groups from Photoshop and all the layers, all the shapes, all the text, it all transfers over beautifully. And I can edit the text, everything's there and ready to go. And the layer names remain the same throughout the two artboards. I'm actually going to delete this artboard because I want to add the content and then duplicate it over to the right, or the right. We also have these really cool color schemes over here to the left. And if you wanted to add these to your document, you can easily do so. Let's say I really like, which color scheme looks nice? The vibrant color, actually the modern color scheme looks pretty cool. So I'm going to hold down my shift key and click on the colors that I want to be added. And then in my assets panel down here at the bottom, boop, I'm going to press the plus button beside colors, and that will allow me to add these colors directly to my assets. And what's cool is that you're able to globally edit these colors. So for an example, let's say I wanted to change the text of this to this red, and I want to change this one to red, and maybe the home button over here to red, and just for the sake of this, we'll change this to red. Doesn't look very good, but for this example, it'll make sense. And let's say we have dozens of artboards on this XD project, and our client comes to us and says, you know what, I'm not feeling that red, I want something a little bit different. Well, in some other applications, you would have to go through every single artboard and make that change across your entire document. Not so fun. So in this case, in XD, because there's global edits, simply right-click on the color you want to edit, press edit, and then make your change. So let's say you wanted it to be, let's say a blue. And you're noticing across all of my artboards, not just one, all of my artboards, that color is changing. Super cool. That also works with text and symbols. Fun stuff. So I'll show you some of that in a minute. So we have basically this artboard here, which we want to make a little bit prettier. So in the background, I want to have an image behind some of these little cards. So I'm going to grab my rectangle tool from the left. Let me hop back into my layers panel so I can see what I'm working with. And I'm simply going to drag out a rectangle across my artboard, making sure to name my layers, because I never do that properly, and move that to the back. Boop. Now, if I wanted an image in here, what I can do is I can go back to Finder and simply grab an image and drag it into XD. And it will highlight in blue, and I can just drop it in place. Now, the importance of that, let me actually not drop it in place. If I drag this image into XD and I don't place it into a shape, I have this massive image, which it's like spilling off my artboard. I have to go and find the corners and resize it. I don't want to deal with that. So because I have a shape, I can just boop, place it, and masks it automatically, and I can easily double click on it and make it larger, make it smaller, whatever I might want. So that's cool, and that also works with these cards as well. I'm going to very quickly just decrease the opacity a little bit of this navigation bar so I can see the background just a touch. Gives a little bit of flair. Then I want to place some cards inside of, or some images inside of these cards. So I'm going to grab, let's say this image looks cool, this one looks good, and this one in the middle. There we go. And again, just like the last example, I can simply double click on any of these, make them larger, and we have our lovely cards. Now I may want also some text. So I'm going to, let's Comic Sans. It's great text, great font, big fan of it. I'm doing this on purpose, and you'll see why in a few minutes. So I'm going to put this one a little bit larger, because on the active card, I want the text slightly large, just like that. I'm going to copy it, paste it on this one. Oops. Copy it, paste it on this one. And who doesn't love Comic Sans? Make this a little bit smaller, and maybe turn down the opacity a little bit. All right. Papyrus is also another good font if you're looking for font choices. Recommend it. So we have our 3 cards. Now the question is, how do we actually animate between these? Because remember, on Photoshop, what we wanted to do is basically like have different cards in different states. So we wanted one a little bit larger, and then location name would get a little bit bigger. So we want to do something like that. So we want to use animation in Adobe XD. And thankfully, it's incredibly easy. Everyone's laughing at Comic Sans. I'm sorry. it'll make sense in a minute. So actually, before I do that, I want to make sure to add this to my assets panel. So I'm going to go back to my assets panel, add a character style for this one and also this one. These are two different sizes, so I want to add both of them to my assets panel. There we go. Back to layers. I'm going to duplicate this artboard over to the right. Now, before I do that, I actually want to go back and make sure that everything is grouped nicely. So this will be the first card. I'm going to select both the card and the text. Command and Control G. This will be first card. This will be the second. And we have, see, Eric knows what's up. Comic Sans is the best font ever. And third. Now we can duplicate this over to the right. Now for this one, let's take a note at what size. So this is 350 pixels across. This is 305. So we're going to lock this and resize this to 350. Just the card. Make sure this is locked, 350. Place this in the center of my document. That looks good. Also want to make sure that these are placed in the center of the document. It was not. Shame on me. There we go. Great. Make sure everything's aligned so we don't have any problems. And this card is going to be back down to 305. Location name, I actually want to grab this character style to make it smaller. This one's going to be larger at 100%. And this one is going to be down to 53%. Look what I've started in the chat. Everyone's yelling about Comic Sans. This is what I do. Move this into place. Make the spacing a little bit larger. There we go. Great. So that one looks good. And we're going to do one more on this side. So this one is going to be smaller. This is going to back down to 305. Make sure it's positioned in the center of my document. Great. Make this small. Down to 53. Beautiful Comic Sans. And this one is going to be 350. Make sure to lock it in place, 350. Hopefully you're starting to get the idea of what's going on. And make this large and 100%. All right. So we now essentially have all three states. We have each card at a different state, and this one is larger, the middle one is larger, and the one on the right is larger. So how do we actually animate between these? Well, it's actually very simple. If we go into prototype mode at the top, we select the entire artboard, because it'll make sense in a second. You'll notice that we have this blue handle over to the right. And if we drag that to our second artboard, we have the option of using a timed trigger. And time triggers are only available when you have an entire artboard selected. If you have individual elements selected, it will not be available. So if we press on that, let's give it a delay of, let's say, 1 second. For the action, we want auto-animate because we want XD to look at the differences between the two artboards and animate between them. And we'll do, let's say, it'll snap into place. And a duration of, let's try 0.6 seconds. We'll see what happens. And then we can select the second artboard and simply drag it to the right, and it'll retain those properties. Then we can select the third artboard and drag it all the way back to the first to create this lovely little loop. Now, if we press play at the top, we're going to see that after a second, each card enlarges, the text shrinks, the opacity changes. We have a good time. So we have this cool little looping animation of all these cards. The active one is at the front, the one that you really want your viewers to look at every second or so. Now, the reason I chose Comic Sans, and this kind of goes back to what we're talking about in the colors, right, is that Using your assets panel, you have global edits. So let's say you really look at this again and figure, you know what, maybe I wasn't smart. I wasn't thinking when I chose Comic Sans. I want them changed, right? I can easily go into my character styles, right click on this, press edit, and let's say I want Avenir Next. And it just changes. Maybe I want Avenir Next condensed, and I can easily do that. And I can do that for the second one as well. Avenir Next condense, and it changes it throughout all of my artboards. So now if I press play again, we don't have that ugly Comic Sans. We have a cool looking Avenir Next. And we have this cool looping animation showing the different cards. And what we can do from there is we can actually start enlarging them. So let's say we really like this image here, maybe the second image. I'm going to duplicate this artboard downwards. Make sure it's not wireframe to anything. And I'm going to grab the first card, move it over to the right, decrease the opacity to 0. Second card, move it over to the right, or I guess the other one was the left, decrease to the 0. And then let me hop into my layers. I'm just going to unlock this and enlarge this so we have an entire image. So we can see exactly what this looks like. Location name, we probably want this a little bit larger, quite a bit larger. Move it down here. We may have additional information as well on something like this, but basically when someone clicks on this card, it's going to go to this screen. And we can do the same thing for all the other ones, but let's start with this one. So basically this card will go down here. It'll be a tap trigger. You're noticing time is not available anymore. It'll be auto-animate, and we'll have it, we'll say snap into place in 0.6 seconds. We can always change that later. And I'm just simply going to do the same thing for all of these so that no matter which artboard and which state it's on, we'll be able to activate that tap trigger. So now as this animation is playing, no matter which artboard it's on, I can easily just click on one of them and it enlarges. And I can go back, grab this card, go back to here, and I can basically create this cool looping. So let's say it's over here, I can tap on it again, and it shrinks. And you're noticing the mask changes as I click on it, so we can see more of that image. And maybe I'll want to go back and let's say the non-active cards, I might want to decrease the opacity a little bit. That probably doesn't look that great, but no, it probably doesn't. Maybe I don't want to do that, but just for the sake of this stream, let's do it. Because why not? Experimentation is king with designing. It doesn't look too bad, but it doesn't look great. But you get the idea. So, and that's that. We've created this really cool looping animation using time triggers in Adobe XD to showcase different cards on this travel agency website. We can easily click on one of them, it enlarges, click on it again, it shrinks down. Cool stuff. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what all of you do when you get your hands on this template, which is available right now on behance.net/daily creative challenge. And like I mentioned before, we might revisit this at some point. So I would encourage you to really push the bounds and see what else you can do in terms of a travel agency website, because there's a lot missing that's on here that you probably would want to see if you're trying to book a trip to any of these amazing places. So yeah, and like Suman says, he's never tried it before. So there's a lot of really cool things. And as I mentioned, what our goal is not necessarily to have you replace Photoshop with Adobe XD. It's to show you what XD can do with your existing Photoshop documents. And as someone who's been using Photoshop for, I think, 13 years, I've started to bring old Photoshop documents in XD, and there's just so much more you can do. It's really cool. And these challenges will hopefully push you a little bit further. So thanks for watching, everyone. Definitely take part in this challenge. Publish it to Behance. Use that keyword XD Daily Challenge. Tweet at us. Join us in Slack. Here's the Slack channel if you do want to join us. And I will see you all bright and early tomorrow morning with another challenge. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.